What's going on, everybody? It's been a while and we're back on MXGP 2021. I haven't made a video on this game in quite a while, probably before Supercross 5 released back in February, March, something like that. But today, obviously, I wanted to talk about MXGP 2022 or MXGP 22, whatever they decide to call it, if the game does release. It is now October 20th or 21st, something like that, and we have no announcement of the game as of today. And if we go online, last year's MXGP game, which is the one in this video, it was announced on October 7th, somewhere in that area. Don't mind my spelling of the word announcement. I did a little bit of blow before this video, so that's why. So basically, this is my wish list of the next MXGP game, or if I even think it's going to release this year. So Kellens from SYS did a pretty in-depth video of all the licenses and who makes the games, all that stuff. So I will link his video in the description because he explains it very well. I got no fucking clue what's going on with all that, and he's very smart and has a lot of knowledge, so go check out his video. Anyways, I think I am one of the very few people that enjoyed last year's MXGP game. I don't think very many people were too fond of it. It was kind of disappointing with the track editor, and the track information they added later on in the game was very questionable. Made the game definitely feel a lot worse if you had vibration on your controller. But besides the point, I did enjoy last year's game, and now that I have it on PC, finally I'm playing it again, enjoying it, having lots of fun with it. I do think it is one of the best MXGP games to come out next to MXGP 3, which probably is still my favorite MXGP game and a lot of other people's favorite milestone game. So since MXGP 22 hasn't been announced yet, I'm starting to think that maybe we won't get another MXGP game this year, and maybe even in the future. I'm not 100% sure what their contract agreements are, if they have to make MXGP games for the next 25 goddamn years. I don't know exactly, but I wouldn't be surprised if these games very soon do not come out anymore, because I think the vast majority of people don't enjoy these MXGP games or the Supercross ones either. Myself, I like the MXGP games, but not a fan of the most recent Supercross titles. They also just haven't really done enough to keep players on these games. There hasn't been any DLC for the MXGP games, I believe, since MXGP 3, and that's 4 or 5 motocross games. 5-6 years. That's a long goddamn time without any DLC charging full price. They have DLC for their Supercross games with the classic riders, which is a good idea, and a classic track or two, which they don't ever really turn out any good, but DLC is DLC. And when you don't make any DLC for your MXGP games, people aren't going to come back and play it, and it makes it feel as if you don't care about the game enough to keep it alive. Yes, I know they have to make 2 motocross games a year, including the Supercross one, but you have to have some sort of depth to your game with DLC, content, something like that. You can't just release it and not touch it ever again. I think the main thing they should focus on with the new MXGP game, if it comes out, is the track editor. The main thing they do not have in track editor is, of course, the ability to create our own landscapes, our own hills, elevation, terrain deformation, all that shit. We can't choose sand, dirt, wet, fucking mud, or anything like that. There's no hay bales, no banners, no sort of life to the custom tracks at all. When you load into a custom track on MXGP 21 or the last couple games before it, sure, the maps kind of look cool, but you can't change the elevation. Just add a straightaway and a couple of jumps on the already pre-made map, which can be okay, but the tracks are so wide, they look very hideous, very unappealing to look at. There's no banners, really no fans, no sponsors around the tracks. You can't change the width of the track, can't put in any pre-made ruts or berms anywhere. It's all the same pre-made boring corners and jumps. So just imagine if you could actually change the elevation, change the type of terrain, whether it be sand or sort of hard packed track, mud, etc. Just imagine if you could do that, change the width of the track, the elevation, add in fan sponsors wherever you wanted. It would be so cool, and it would make the track editor actually feel like a custom track editor. Because in the last few MXGP games and even the last couple Supercross games, it really has not felt like custom tracks, even though it is a custom track editor, simply because they give you 5 to 10 presets of jumps and corners, and it gets very boring and stale to see the exact same corners and jumps just in different layouts. When guys make MX vs ATV Reflex custom tracks, you can see every single track has its own feel to it because they did every single rut, every single berm, every single jump, every single section is just very different from each other. And that's what these MXGP games need. Even if the physics stay the same, it would be so cool if you could just have way more freedom and creativity to the track editor. Now obviously the next thing they really have to put in the next game and do a better job at it is track deformation or ruts. Now MXGP 21, it released with track deformation, I guess, but it didn't affect the bike or the rider at all. But then later on, a couple months later in an update, they added track deformation that actually affected the bike, and it made the game a lot worse. You would just push wide in every corner, bounce over all the little bumps and ruts, and you couldn't hook into any of them, and it felt really bad. Now I don't expect them to have track deformation in the next game or even the next couple games, and I've been saying that for 5 or 6 years now. They really just need more time to develop a good terrain deformation system, because when they come out with 2 games every year, you can't really focus on a terrain deformation system when they have to tweak the physics every year. They just simply need more time, and I really wish that they had a couple more years to develop one singular game, because I know it would be very beneficial. Even if there is no terrain deformation, I would just love to see so much more pre-made berms and ruts on the track that you can actually hook into, and more braking bumps. Stuff like that really makes the track more hard to tackle and of course a lot more fun. And it really does baffle me how you can make a motocross game and just not have a good terrain deformation system. Yes, I know it's definitely not easy, I know, but it's a motocross game. You have to have some sort of good deformation. You just have to, period. Now the last main thing I would worry about for the next MXGP game is of course just freeing up the whips and scrubs. Technically the whips are free in the last few MXGP and Supercross games, but they're still a canned animation. They still look the exact same pretty much every time you joysticks around. And the scrubs don't feel the greatest. They just have to come up with a better whipping and scrub system. The whole pulling the sticks apart and together, getting really old. They have to come up with something that is different and just works. When you play Reflex, the whipping and scrubbing just feels so nice in that game. I have to keep bringing it up. It just feels a lot more natural than pushing your sticks apart and pulling them together, getting the same animation. I'm not a huge whip or scrubs kind of guy. I would rather have ruts and content before the whips, but that doesn't mean the whips have to be bad. They should be decent, and it's something they definitely have to look at soon, because it's been 6, 7, 8 games in a row. They've just been the same, and they really need to get something new going. The last thing I can really think of that would be great is just better customization. They have to come out with classic gear, all the gear that's been in previous MXGP games. They just have to have it. They can't just keep taking out gear every single game, adding a few new gear sets. It's gotta stop. They have to add in something new, classic gear, something like that. Yes, it's not the end of the world because customization is decent in these games. They just have to change a bunch of the customization, how it works with the next few games, because it's been the same for so long now. It really does not feel like they're changing anything. So many of the recent games have felt very identical, and I'm honestly getting a little bit bored of playing these games. Supercross titles, I would be very happy if they stopped making those, because they suck. The last 2 have sucked horribly, and they only keep getting worse. The MXGP games, it's hit or miss really, but they are far from perfect. Overall, I'd be a little upset if MXGP 22 doesn't come out, but at the same time, I'd be okay with it, because I think if these games don't change within the next couple of years, a new developer or some company has to take over, or these games should just stop coming out. Because look at Legends, that game is atrocious. Look at the last couple Supercross games, they have been atrocious. Motocross games just aren't good anymore, for the most part anyways. So other than that, if MXGP 22 does release and does come out, I obviously will be getting it, testing it out, trying it out, making content of it, especially since I will be laid off in the winter, so I will have plenty of free time. So I do hope it does come out because it would give me something to do. So I think that's everything I have to say for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I'm a Top G, and take care.